If our schools and colleges needed good teachers anytime, it is now, because there is a knowledge explosion and students need to cope with it. And it has also become a complex and confusing world, and the students need guidance on objectives and values. We have with us a fine teacher this evening, Dr. Pennathur. He is a professor of chemical biology and computational biology at Anna University. He did his early college education at Vivekananda College in Chennai and a PhD in organic and physical chemistry at the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. He has researched and taught at the University of Chicago and at the University of Texas, Austin in the US. He has been with Anna University from 1993. He has helped 20 students to get PhDs. He has published widely in national and international journals. He has applied for 8 patents. He recently won the prestigious Indian National Science Academy Teachers Award as the best teacher for 2012. Very appropriately, he will talk to us today about teaching and learning. May I invite Dr. Pennathur to take the floor.
Thank you very much for this kind invitation. I think I bugged Mr. Madhu, I think the last 2 weeks by not replying to his mails on time. I'm very sorry for this because it was my mistake, because I think I had taken too much leave from the university and I was in a rush to finish the portions that had been assigned for the second year BTech students. Today I have taken this topic of teaching and learning. So these are two different things. So teaching is something that teachers do, and learning is something the students ought to do, is how the teachers see it. So I've been looking at, now as you go older, I think you're more interested in the history of how education took place in India. If we see, I think we have with us the remnants of the Macaulayan way of teaching, where Macaulay was very good. He said he wanted to do something that was good for the empire, not for India. He said he wanted Indians to run the country for the British, and therefore he said that the way we train these people is to be obedient, is to that the head should be filled with facts. So I should know in this village how many guys having this kind of disease, or whether this has water, this, so you have to mug up the geography to find out whether this river will be, when this river will be flowing full of water, and this, etc., etc. So the Macaulayan theory was very good for England and worked very badly for India. Fortunately for Macaulay, England changed. They now have the best teachers. They have they have the 2 best universities in the top 4, Cambridge and Oxford, while India lags far, far behind. And why is this? So I did a little bit of, as I said, a little bit of going back, and I got this great quotation, I think, which we all should be very proud of, is by Swami Vivekananda himself, where he says, education is the manifestation of perfection in man. I think this is the most amazingly great statement ever made. Now, of course, it has a bit of Advaita philosophy into it that is built in, where he says that you already have everything. It is for somebody to get that latent thing out of your being. And so everybody, according to me, all students, as I see, we are all on a level playing ground. Absolutely that this manifestation is always with us. That we want at all times to be as perfect as possible. And the persons who have to help this thing to happen is, of course, the teachers. It will be very anecdotal the way I see this. As I said, I joined the department in 1993. We were a very small department. We had 20 students whom I could teach, and it was like this great. It was actually like a Gurukula. The students could come into my office anytime. 5 of them could come, and we would have a discussion across the table. These were students who had just come out of school, and this was the most enjoyable period in my life, and still continues to be a very, very enjoyable period of my life. So how this particular, it's just not that we would, it's a true Gurukula system in the sense that it would not only be what the subjects that I teach I would be discussing, but generally what we have to do for this country, etc., went from psychology, philosophy, to a lot of other things. And I think this is both the essence of teaching and learning, that one has to somehow look at the needs and wants of the students. That every student is different, but every student, as Vivekananda says, wants to be perfect. So how does a teacher do this? Again, when we were students, the Guru was the Almighty. He would rather no questions asked, etc. But India's, believe me, in the last 10 years, India is not like this. Those days are long gone. The students are as aggressive as you could, as anybody else. They come to class if the teacher is good. They don't come to class if the teacher is bad. They post notes on your Facebook saying that this was a very bad class that I attended. It was a very good class that I attended. They make comments everywhere. There are new things that are available in the internet which says rate my professors. You could just get, and you can always see what your rating is. So everything is a transparent society. And how do we address these problems? As I was discussing, I think till about 2000, I would say that our students still listened to you as an individual who had more experience. But now after the 2000s, you will see that they look at the internet, because of the internet explosion, because of all these kinds of things. They can look at how courses are taught in the US. It's all on YouTube. If I teach a course on bioorganic chemistry, they can go to MIT and look whether the bioorganic course is taught there, and what is it that I do different, and how do I teach? Do I just copy notes from there, or do I use my own notes for doing this? So there are challenges for teachers. The challenge that I see is that how do I give a wholesome education to my student? Not only in them not learning, how do I make them learn? How do I make them understand? That is I think if we now, that this is the crucial question, that if my whole purpose as a teacher is to make them understand and then be very critical. There were times when in the 2003s and 4s, for every mistake that I made in my class and the student pointed out, he was given extra marks. And this for me was a very, very great lesson that I learned, because that really makes you be on your toes. And I think, so the paradigm of how you teach is completely changing. An absolute quantum jump in the paradigms of teaching. How? Because what you see in India now is with the surfeit of games, etc., that all these students would rather play games than come and attend your class. And games seem to be much more, or anything that they do on the computer actually makes them, is much more of a challenge than coming and sitting in one's class. So how do you, so this element of criticality, of thinking, how do you inculcate in children? I think this is the biggest challenge that India faces now. How does one encourage a very, very critical way of thinking? Again, carrying my anecdotes, one thing is that what I do in class is that, as I said, for every question, if every mistake they point out, they get marks. If I ask them a question and they answer, they get marks. So these are some of these things very innovatively we have to think to make this thing as a good learning experience for these kids. The second thing that I really is very disappointing is that in India, I think everything runs on mistrust rather than trust. And I think that is a fundamental problem that we face, and it is exceedingly bad for education, because education, research, everything runs on trust. If I publish a paper, inherently there's a trust associated that I have done all these experiments and I have not put up any results. It's based on trust, because nobody has the time to again repeat your experiment. So the second thing that I did, this was about a year ago, was that in one of my tests, we have to give 3 assignment tests. In one of my tests, I write the answers on the board, and the teacher and the students correct their own papers. So this is, I tell them I trust you with the whole thing. So I write and I tell them, you give the steps and all that is your idea. I won't even write how many marks each step is. It's up to you to decide that if you have really understood it and felt that you deserve this mark. The results I got was exceedingly an enriching experience for me. What I really found out was that the students consistently underrated themselves. That they gave less marks for themselves than I would have given them if I had corrected it. So in the end, what happened was that I really went through all their papers and then gave them enough marks. And then I also said, and for some reason, I don't know why, I think that is built into our DNA, is that if somebody had given, the answer need not be correct, but if they had used a very nice way of trying to solve the problem, in an innovative way of solving the problem, they may not have succeeded, but the path is innovative. They just gave themselves 0. And I said, that's not correct. Innovation, you may be wrong, but the way they thought about it, I said you should give marks to that. So this has taught me a lot of things, but has made many enemies with my other faculty colleagues. But I still go on, because I tell the registrar this is what I do, and he says it's okay, as far as you don't put anything on paper. So this, I think, as teachers, I think this is where we really go wrong. That is, we give negative marks for innovation, but in very fact, the way we correct papers, I think we don't really give any marks for innovation. So another thing that I really did was that I think it's done in other universities abroad. That is, the whole paper, we have a question paper, and the whole idea of a credit system is that it is fundamentally not an absolute system, it's a relative system. So if any guy gets 60 marks and the highest is 60, and the other guy gets 40, it's actually this guy who has got 60 is actually 100, so he gets the best grade. So what I practice is that the questions themselves are very are relative. For example, if I have 5 questions in a question paper, then and there's increasing levels of difficulty. If one person answers only one question out of the whole class, that guy gets 100. He would have just answered one question, absolutely just one question, but nobody else would have answered it. He gets 100. So we have a statistical thing in our head where we give marks based on this. What are the results after such an examination? What we find is that 2-3 things that I have found is that the guys who are very bad at writing essay answers but very good in innovative thinking, get an S in all my courses, but get a D in all other courses. So this was it. But then, if you look at a future career, what happens is, just last year, the guy who passed out this year, he got, I take 4 courses, 2 lab courses and 2 theory courses, and he got an S in all those 4. His grade point average was about 8.1, which is not too good in our university. But this guy, after completing your MSc, there is an examination called the CSIR undergraduate examination for CSIR examination for PhD, and a lot of about 1.5 lakh students apply for it. There are about 10,000 scholarships that are available, and this guy came 41st in that exam. So I think this kind of a thing does work. My personal thing is that it works. Then he's done some exceptionally great work in his undergraduate project, which may even result into very good publications. So these kinds of guys, what I see, who go through this kind of an examination system, seem to have done exceptionally well in research. And I think that is very important for this country. That is that the best students we get are after +2, whether we like it or not. One can argue about it, but I think that's a separate topic. But the best students we get are after +2. And what we see in India is that you see that the best students in the US, about 10%, or any developing country, about 10% of them end up in doing research. In India, I think it's an absolute 0.1%. It's absolutely absent, and we are far away from even thinking of ourselves as a developed country. We're very far away. And somehow, as a teacher, that's what I go on telling my Vice Chancellor in every meeting that I have with them, is that we are not, as a university, we should make sure that 20% of our students go abroad or do their PhD, preferably abroad, and then they come back and teach students. So I did a small statistical analysis of students who had done their projects with me in the last 10 years. So this has been about 30 students have done their project with me. These guys can do whatever they want. I just give them a small thing, a small project that is defined. For example, one of the things that I really thought would be very helpful was that can we make amino acids from ammonia, carbon, etc. by just putting a flash of lightning, which we can create. So these two kids said, okay, sir, we are very interested in this, we will do it. So they went, they found out the paper, then how do you, we couldn't get methane, so how do you, what do you use for methane? So these guys got an LPG cylinder. They said, okay, we won't have methane, but we'll have butanes inside. And then, of course, we pass it to ammonium hydroxide. And then where do we get this flash? Two electrodes with a flash. So these guys went to a very good friend of mine in the ECE department. So he rigged up a good thing for them, using some condenser from a scooter mechanic. And this whole thing was constructed in my lab for about 2,000 rupees, which was worth it because we had to pay it out of our own pocket, pay it out of my own pocket, but it was worth it. And then these guys said, then I said, can we now use it for treatment of wastewater? So we put some wastewater, which was smelling very bad from Guam, and then they used this thing to give this bolt of voltage, and a small lightning was created. And what they saw was after an hour, after about half a day, that the smell disappeared. There was no smell. Somehow something was happening which actually did this thing. We couldn't continue on that because time was up, and then they had to. But what these two guys did was that one went to Carnegie Mellon University and then did a PhD in wastewater engineering and still doing it. The other guy went to Amherst and then is doing, both of them, he's also doing something on microbial fuel cells. Can you use microbes as fuel cells? What is, of course, every time they come and meet me, we have lunch together. And what they really was very heartening was that both of them want to come back and set up a water purification plant in India. You know, they said that India is, no other country again wastes so much water as India does. For them, he said, absolutely no other country would even allow such wastage of water anywhere else. So these are, I think, somehow that at an undergraduate level, that somehow we should get students into research. I think that is the only way of really getting this country up and running. Because two things, these days, again you look at, I've been to the US, I've been everywhere, and wherever you go, you see that that the kind of ingenuity and that the Indians have is unmatched. They seem to have a solution to every problem, and you would see it, of course, if you are in Nana University, you would see it. There's an absolute solution to every problem. It takes about 15 years, but that's okay. But there is a solution. I think Indians have this in their DNA that they find a solution to every problem in life. And I think if that can be, of course, at that rate can be fastened, it's amazing. So I'm very optimistic about that, about this. So this is one thing. Do I have some more time? Another thing that I've been really discussing is that now, again with this internet explosion, there are a lot of very original papers that are available free on the internet. For example, if you are a computer scientist, you will see that a lot of NUTS papers are available just online. Even if you go far back, if you look at why is carbon tetrahedral, it was discovered by a person called Van Hoff, and Van Hoff's original 15-page paper is available on the net. What I know, this was something I did this semester, was take his original paper, actually using cardboard construct the models that he did, we made it, and then showed why he assumed that this was tetrahedral, and what experiments that he did to show that it was tetrahedral. So this is something that is coming up in the US in a big way, but at a research level. This is called teaching by dissection. Okay, this is the name they have. I think that person will be here in January. We're trying to get him to our department. He's got a huge $1 million funding for teaching this way. It's called teaching by dissection. I met him in Delhi about 2 weeks ago. And I think this is a fantastic idea. I think this is the way to go. Because here you use all the things that are available in the web. Then you teach them how that guy looked at it in the 1800s. And with a very historical perspective on why it was such a very famous discovery, because at that time he didn't have anything. So these are some of the things that one can do. The other thing is that a lot of these things could also be understood if students actually model all this. With the prices of computers coming down, you can actually do virtual experiments. And I think this is also very, very important, that one can actually do virtual experiments. And then they can, for example, what happens if Planck's constant is very high? One could ask such question. And so you just plug in the value and see what happens to the real world and Planck's. Or, for example, a very, very nice show in National Geographic that I watched. The question is, what happens? So, for example, one was, what happens if the Earth slows down? What will happen to our motion of time, how our circadian rhythms will go, how our tides will go, we will not be able to, and we will all die. There's some, so these kinds of things can actually be now programmed because of the very, very low cost.
Can I ask you a question?
I think
do you think we need to switch to an application-based education system?
Yes. Again, I would come to your question because a week ago, I think somehow teaching has become hype. For example, a week ago, I went to a science exhibition at Kendra Vidyalaya and I was the judge. And we looked at about 60, it was on green living, and we looked at 60 different kinds of projects. And about 45 of them had solar panels. And they just had stuck solar panels, which I think there was no innovation. But the person to whom I gave the maximum marks was this guy at the age of 14, he was at 10th standard, goes for turtle walks, collects eggs of turtles, hatches them and all that. And he also looks at turtles which get hit by the blades of ships, and then they come to shore without flippers. Since they are in the sea, what happened was that these guys were giving it antibiotics to clean up its wounds, but what happened was that somehow something happened to their metabolism and they were dying. So this boy, on his own, thought about it. He gave it a mix, he prepared a mix of turmeric powder in water and applied it. And it actually healed. I thought that was a fantastic project because it showed some innovation skills in this whole thing. So I hope you will become a finalist. So these things, so what I'm now suggesting, for example, at Kendra I said that I will take about 3-4 projects that Westinghouse finalists did. Westinghouse is this thing that they give about $10,000 for 4 semi-finalists and $50,000 with school education for the finalists. And I said we will do dissection of these projects. We will dissect this project and see what was the innovation built on it. So that I made do about 3-4 months later. But I think my whole thing is that it is not just the students. I think which we would see the bell curve of the IQ goes on shifting towards higher IQ every 10 years. So there's nothing wrong with the students. It's all, I would even go to say it's the teachers who are not doing their job properly. 30 years when I was an MSc student to go and read a book was fantastic. It's okay. But now you have all the equipment. For example, one thing that we are looking at is for my BTech students next year is to actually synthesize aspirin in the lab. It's a very easy synthesis, one-step synthesis. Crystallize it. Do the X-ray crystal structure and find out what the structure of aspirin is. Then, because what happens is most of the drugs that are on patent, the way you take it out of patent is that you crystallize it in a different form and say, okay, so this thing is different and therefore you have a different drug. So now can they now think about such things? They try to crystallize it, they do all the chemical this thing and then try to find out by writing a report on that. Two things that we lack. One is the ability to question teachers, innovation, and third is that we don't know how to write and put it in a very concrete form. For example, things now what we are saying is that every experiment we conduct should be recorded in a high definition camera, so that we know exactly where we pushed the buttons, what we did to get the same consistent results. So this is something that from this year we will be trying out, that every experiment, that PhD experiment that I do in the lab will be recorded. And then we will have a disk, and if anybody asks, we will say, take this disk, this is how we do the experiment. Okay, so these are my personal anecdotes on teaching. Sort of close with some two very big, I think I'm getting old, and therefore I actually also read poetry nowadays. So the one is by Rabindranath Tagore, a very, very famous poem in Gitanjali, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country away. I think this is very, very true and apt for the kind of teaching and research I do. And one has to be, of course, optimistic about India. And this comes from an earlier poet, Ghalib. So he says, this is just after the 1857 First War of Independence. Said I one night to a Christian seer who knew the secrets of whirling time, Sir, you perceive that goodness and faith, fidelity and love have all departed from the sorry land. Father and son are at each other's throat, brother fights brother, unity and federation are undetermined. Despite these ominous signs, why has doomsday not come? Why does the last trumpet not sound? Who holds the reins of the final catastrophe? The hoary old man of lucent ken pointed toward Kashi, Benares was the seat of learning, and gently smiled. The architect, he said, is fond of this edifice. Because of this, there is color in life. He would not like this to perish and fall. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Dr. I think you can take a seat and answer questions from here. I think it was truly a very, very insightful and thought-provoking talk. And I would like to make a small modification to the topic. You said teaching, learning, and I would like to add evaluating to it. I think it's pretty interesting to note that evaluation today is a two-way process. It's not just the teacher who is evaluating the student, but it's also the other way around. And what is really frightening is that the student's evaluation is happening real time. He just finishes the class and then he posts something on the Facebook, and that's truly a very frightening prospect. I think the only way you can probably escape from seeing something bad written about you is don't be on Facebook. I've always known that students come with a tremendous amount of knowledge nowadays because of the internet. they come to the classrooms and they already know a lot of answers, and you have to be more knowledgeable than them. So, but then this whole idea of evaluating is something which I really didn't know. Anyway, thank you very much. And if there are any more questions from the group?
On the topic of evaluation, this sort of helped me, because what happened was that about 3 years ago, every class I would go about 10, 12 minutes late. And then one group of students, oh, this guy is good, but he always comes late to class. Which was a fantastic comment. So now I get into my class by 8:35. It's an 8:30 class. So I think you also learn this process. I think time is important to everybody. This like 15. When I was studying my MSc, if my professor came 30 minutes late, I would never even comment about it. But now. And I think it's a very good thing, absolutely great thing, because time is exceedingly precious.
You had said that not enough people go into research. Why is it? Is it a question of salaries?
Yeah, in India, I think nobody wants to spend time. 8 years is too long, and I think that's it's time and money again. For example, I had this excellent guy. This guy got into the best university abroad in Johns Hopkins University, and he got into IIM Bangalore. He chose IIM Bangalore. There was another guy who got into Minnesota, but got into Ahmedabad, but he went to Minnesota, and now is a big guy in Hyderabad in the Rotary Labs. So in one sense, I think it is the culture, but this guy did it, the guy who refused IIM Ahmedabad did it in 1998. The guy who went to IMB was 2005. So in that 7 years, the perception had changed. It was all about money, and you ask this guy, he says, I want to retire by 45. Absolutely, and live and do whatever I please after 45. Get enough money and then do whatever I want. Then I will do what I. Now I have the energy to work and get the money. At 45, I don't want to spend my time doing research.
Dr. Simple has made a few changes at the CBSE level. I don't know if you have followed those changes. One of the things he had thought about is open book tests.
No, for example, open book tests are a huge waste of time in India. I did it for 5 years, from 1996 to 2003. It doesn't work, because what these guys do is that they think that they can find the answers in the book and get the book.
There has to be application based.
So what now I do is what I call a cheat sheet, which I didn't explain here. That is, they can write whatever answers they want in it. It's like having a legal bit. So you can get that cheat sheet to my exam. You can write whatever you want into that cheat sheet. And I also give marks if the cheat sheet is innovative. They have to put the cheat sheet with them. That seems to be working. That seems working. Because these guys read and get those formulas somewhere. The cheat sheet idea, so I'm now saying that cheat sheet is a great idea, but I don't know how to think of it.
What happens if Planck's constant is very high?
Huh?
What happens if Planck's
Okay,
constant is very high?
if Planck constant becomes very big, for example, you will just die. The photons will have so much energy, right? Even the visible, you can't even stay under this line. Because Planck constant is this thing about potential and kinetic energy. It is a combination of both. And so if it's very high, you will die.
Talking about all the courses available online from MITs and Stanford, same thing will happen with Indian universities also?
No, Indian universities are very bad at preparing notes because again, we don't invest time really going into very original papers. See, you look at most Indian textbooks, they are either copied from other textbooks, they sometimes even repeat repeat the mistakes that is done in the US or any foreign publisher. So my feeling is that somehow I've been now saying that each of the universities should have a very, very good department of education. That is, now one thing is now people say, oh, no Indian university is within the top 500. It cannot be, because the definition of university in India and definition of university abroad is completely different. A university like Chicago would have the medical school, the law school and the management school with the science and engineering school inside the same campus.
Nuclear reactors.
Yeah, whereas in India, engineering is different, science is different, medicine is different. IIT can never come into the top 100 unless it has a medical school, law school and management school inside its campus. I mean, it's very clear. And unless you have this, for example, wherever, for example, Stanford, they have all their, or MIT, they have all their courses, 1,800 courses on the web, free for anybody to use. But then it goes to the Department of Education. Those guys look at it, and then they prepare the slides, and they do it. The other model is what is now come, which is known as the Coursera. Oh yeah, see, you could have a look at it. It's an amazing Coursera. Coursera. www.coursera. This is from 4 universities in the US, and you can just say, I want to learn, and you are given periodic tests there, you are done everything is online, and you get a grade for that. I think these are the models that will slowly come to India, because we do not have the manpower or the money to make another 30 universities. The total number of universities for the population of this size in 2025 will be 1,800. We have 364. So models like Coursera will take over.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pennathur.
Thank you.
On behalf of our club. Thank you. I think before I ask Professor N.B. Bala to propose a word of thanks, I'm just reminded about a very important announcement which I was supposed to make, which I didn't make. I think you all know that on Sunday, father of our Rotarian, Saturday, father of our Rotarian Mani P. San passed away. So I think it will be appropriate for us to just stand in silence for him in his honor. Thank you very much. And I now request Professor Bala to propose a word of thanks.
President Seshadri, fellow Rotarians. We have been hearing a lot of negative comments about our education system, rote learning and teachers not motivated, students not motivated, and the outdated syllabus, outdated system of schooling and education. So it's refreshing to hear from our speaker today, Gautam, that things are not that bad. There are innovations taking place in teaching and learning, and basically because there are people who are passionate about their job. So very grateful to our speaker today. His passion came out during his talk, and on a positive note, we are going to be leaving this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bala. This meeting of the Rotary Madras South